Hi everyone. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the Cyber 2020 conference. My name is Samuel Onalo, and I will be presenting my paper titled Virtual Private Blockchains: Security Overlays for Permission Blockchain, which I have co-authored with my senior colleagues, Dr. Deepak GC and Dr. Eckhard Flugel. We are based in the School of Computing and Mathematics at Kingston University, London, United Kingdom. And just before we continue, I'd like to talk a little bit about myself so you can get to know me better. This is a picture of me on a very good day, that is. and I am Nigerian born and bred, and I started my education there as well. Got my first degree in applied physics, and then I moved to the UK. I started my master's degree and finished with a degree in network and information security with business management rather. And currently still a student studying as a PhD student, research fellow at Kingston University, London. And then in general, I have worked in education, information technology, and engineering and business management sectors. So that's just a short introduction to myself. And my area of interest at the moment is in the application of distributed and decentralized ledger architectures for security in network and information technology systems. So I'm very happy to work with anyone who's got a shared area of interest with me as well. So just before we continue, I'd like to talk about, just to introduce you to the topics we'll be discussing today. The first topic would be the introduction to blockchains, and then we'll go over a bit of blockchain security, and then we'll talk about virtual private blockchains, which is the actual contribution of this paper, and then we'll talk about the security analysis. We'll discuss and analyze the security of the architecture. But we'll also talk about and evaluate the system functionality and discuss using a demo the basic idea. We'll also have a look at the application of the VPBC, as we fondly call it, the VPBC architecture in real world scenarios as well. And we will be concluding at that point. So, a quick introduction to what blockchains are. To give a simple definition, a blockchain is a distributed or decentralized public or private ledger secured by cryptographic protocols with growing adoption across all sectors, especially in financial technology. And in a very short while, we will be exploring what the differences are between a private blockchain and a public blockchain. But speaking about the importance or the relevance of blockchain technology in financial technology today, we know that cryptocurrency has grown quite famous and had a huge level of adoption in the economy of nations and organizations world over. We know today that the Bitcoin is the highest currency in the world, and it is currently equivalent to about £10,000 for just one Bitcoin. And that tells us how important this technology has now become. According to recent research, the adoption of blockchain technology is steadily increasing, and major business organizations are currently investigating on how to benefit from features such as immutability and verifiability of public data or public verifiability of data in general, and also decentralized architectures like public and private blockchains, and confidential or anonymous transactions. We can also tell that as the blockchain technology is gradually maturing, the quest for suitable applications is shaping the future of the centralized network functionality, providing data integrity services and innovations in the field of big data, cloud computing, and also cryptography. However, current blockchain technologies are not always able to address specific security requirements of individual or specialist applications. And so when we think about this, for example, a public blockchain application would not be able to provide the required confidentiality to allow independent financial institutions to share sensitive data securely and even anonymously as well. Um, so, how do you solve such a problem? Now, a possible solution to this is the concept of a private blockchain. Now, to give more description to what a private blockchain is, it's a restricted access network where permission has to be granted to prospective participants um, for transactional and administrative participation in the network activities. And you would naturally think or understand or know that the opposite would apply for public blockchains. And I'll just show a very a simple diagram to illustrate this for us in the very next slide. However, just to touch again, the reason why we're doing this, or the reason why this research was started in the first place, if you think about it, typically cryptocurrencies are built on public blockchains, right? So anyone or everyone can participate from anywhere in the world without obstruction or anything of that sort. By contrast, now, right, private blockchains are targeted towards businesses and institutions who want to benefit from blockchain technology. When we talk about the distributed ledger consensus and the immutability of the data, once you put it there, it's always there forever. Mathematically, that is. These organizations want to limit the scope of the facility to just people who belong to that company or that organization only, and probably some trusted partners. However, to maintain such a private blockchain requires resources. And also, the general idea of a private blockchain is in direct contradiction to the original intention of the idea of the Bitcoin technology, which started the whole process of the whole idea of the blockchain systems and cryptocurrencies in general, which is basically to decentralize the network and to take away reliance on a central body. Now, our fundamental research question is to find out, are there alternatives to the private blockchain architecture with robust security and infrastructure suitable for generic or specific use for that matter? And if there are, can we use these architectures in real world scenarios or real world cases? And how applicable are they in these cases? So these are the questions that prompted this research and is powering the quest to get the answers. And very quickly, we'll go to the next slide, which will just give you an overview or diagrammatic representation of what a public and a private blockchain would look like. A public blockchain is typically like what we can see in the diagram, where all types of devices can connect to that network from anywhere in the world, and there's no restriction whatsoever. So in simple terms, an open network where all nodes can freely access the network resources, and the ledger, which is actually the blockchain, is shared and transparent. Everyone sees what goes on in the network. Now, in contrast, a private blockchain is restricted and basically the same architecture, but has restriction, and only permitted members of the nodes can access the resources. And it's a closed network, and users can only join this network by invitation. So this basically is a difference between the public and the private blockchain networks. So the next topic to consider is blockchain security. And a number of cryptographic techniques are in place in mainstream blockchain applications in order to fulfill, basic security requirements. And some of these are cryptographic hash functions and consensus mechanisms like proof of work, and also digital signatures. And they ensure the integrity of the public ledger and provide security in that sense. And when we talk about advanced blockchain dependability and security, we are looking at the larger picture, how scalable these systems are. And so far it's been proven that the scope for scalability isn't as much as it's suspected to be at this point in time, using these security systems. And we also talk about the inefficiency of the confidentiality systems they have in place. So these are the two areas that has been narrowed down to by this paper, and we've done a bit of research about this, and that's what we've found. Scalability is on the shortfall, and also inefficient confidentiality systems are in place at this point in time. And then we will talk about establishing confidentiality. So other systems, a few systems or a few platforms, blockchain platforms, have dedicated resources to creating confidential channels or confidential, platforms where transactors or members of the networks are able to transact confidentially. And we'll look at two examples. The first one is Hyperledger, which is a creation of IBM. They have created what they've called Hyperledger Fabric channels. What this does is it implements a secure channel between two or more specific members. And the principle is basically to create a complex infrastructure of cryptographic protocols and a range of security services, which includes confidential inter-channel communication, and enables transaction to go on in that manner. Why this is, quite sophisticated and powerful, it still has its drawbacks in that the infrastructure for achieving the desired confidentiality on this blockchains requires expertise and resources in order to deploy and configure. And when we compare that system to the other one, which is the multi-chain platform, they have created what they call the multi-chain stream confidentiality. And the basic principle here is they secure data that's stored on the blockchain stream, or they call streams, using symmetric and asymmetric cryptography. And this is quite robust, and how they're able to do this is any intended or any data intended to be submitted to the system is encrypted before it's been stored and timestamped on the chain as well. So the password for reading this encrypted data is only made available to a subset of blockchain participants, leaving others unable to read it. Now, this architecture appears secure and efficient, and and it requires the availability of a PKI, that's a public key infrastructure expert, to effectively manage this. And that's a drawback. The idea of the clamor for a global adoption for the blockchain system by the industry is geared by utility, the ability for anyone, all members of the public, being able to implement the systems if they need to. And the problem here is that you need a certain level of expertise to be able to manage this system. Now, the potential solutions that we have discovered as well, along with other papers, reviewed in our paper as well, is the use of threshold cryptography, which primary example is secret sharing. And what this does is that it reduces the storage requirements and the costs, and also enhances the transaction integrity of the system. Now, this brings us to the main contribution of this paper. Now, we're going to be exploring the main contribution of this paper, which is the virtual private blockchains, or VPBC as we fondly call it. And in simple terms, it's a mechanism to create a blockchain architecture with properties that are similar or akin to a private blockchain. However, we're going to be leveraging the existing public blockchain functionality. And to explain further, and this has been inspired by previous work on secure overlay architectures, and in general, a blockchain architecture which is known to achieve security goals, typically benefited by private blockchains, is what we are proposing or have proposed. And the emphasis here is placed on confidentiality and anonymity of sensitive data or sensitive transaction information that would be disclosed naturally to all the other users if if it was contained in the public ledger or traditional blockchain. Now, these security goals are achieved, like we've just said before, by leveraging or making maximum use of existing blockchain functionalities. And to explain this further, we're just going to show this using the basic idea. Right, so the basic idea is in order to implement a VPBC, one needs to substitute confidential transaction content with pseudo content, which is false content in this sense, or more specifically, data bits of the originally intended content through information dispersal. So instead of sending the actual information, what we're going to be doing is splitting up the information and dispersing it through the system or through the blockchain. That's what it is in the most basic terms. Now, the precise choice of this pseudo content or this um, false data in quotation marks will strongly depend on a particular blockchain application and will also need to be carefully analyzed prior to setting up your VPBC. And we also have noted that you would need to substitute or to make ready a process for reversing the system if or the transaction or the procedure if needed, so that other members of the VPBC can retrieve the original information when needed or when they want to have access to it. This might require exchanging secret information amongst participants of the VPBC and will have to be achieved using an out-of-bound channel, an external channel, such as an email or phone conversation or a secret meeting somewhere. And this can be likened to what we have uh, at the moment, which is the VPN, virtual private networks, in a transition network architecture based on on the manual configuration of keys or keys for your encryption of your network. And now we'll consider the characteristics of a virtual private blockchain system. And the first thing to think about is the virtual nature of this VPBC. And the term virtual is justified as a VPBC utilizes existing blockchain functionality. So the blockchains that this network will be interacting with will inherently pass on their own security, utilities and characteristics by virtue of interaction. And the ideology of the virtual characteristics of this system is in that it is not known by anyone who is not on the system. So the virtual private blockchain interacts with a public blockchain, but the public blockchain does not is unaware of the existence of the virtual private blockchain. Now, the next thing to consider is that if PBC is not visible to the other blockchains, like I was saying before, blockchain users that are not part of it, and it is transparent to its users. So this achieves both usability and security, and which is a desirable characteristic. So these are the things we're looking at, or we were looking to achieve in the end. So anonymity is one security goal, and also confidentiality is another security goal. So we'll now be considering the secret sharing approach of the VPBC architecture, and we'll expand on the basic approach from the previous slide explained before. The precise cryptographic scheme that is underlying the VPBC architecture developed in this paper is the technique of secret sharing. And the basic idea of secret sharing is to divide given data, that is secret S, into n parts, and which will be the shares, right? And in such a way that knowing at least m shares allows for reconstructing S. Now, in an ideal secret sharing scheme, knowledge of less than m shares will not reveal any information on S. Now, this means that a secret sharing scheme with parameters m and satisfying the aforementioned properties is also called a MN threshold scheme. Now, this was developed by Shamir using polynomial interpolation. And this is what was going to be used basically to implement the VPBC architecture. We can now explain this in the following way, right? If we consider a generic public blockchain and and a request transaction with sensitive transaction information T requiring protection. Now, using a suitable ideal MN threshold scheme, T will be shared as N pieces of information as transaction shares, as from T1 to N to Tn, and these will be used for the individual transactions executed on N independent public blockchains. Now, notice that the resulting shares are random and do not preserve any patterns, patterns that might be in the initial secret. Also, the recipient, prior to using the scheme, has been informed of the selected blockchains. Now, when new transactions occur, a subset of M transactions, which in reality are shares of the real transaction, will be collated, and the original secret um, transaction data can be reconstructed. In this slide, we'll discuss the security analysis of the VPBC protocol. There are a number of robust strongholds this architecture possesses that shields it from successful attacks. The security principles implemented include inheritance of native security infrastructure from existing blockchain architectures, security by obscurity via secret sharing, and steganography by cover synthesis or modification via information dispersal. Now, some attacks or possible attacks on the scheme has been identified, and they include brute force attack and de-anonymization attack. However, these attack vectors are unlikely to be exploited as they require an incredulous investment of time and resources with very low probability of success. We will now demonstrate the basic idea using a simple illustration. The basic idea is straightforward, and an explanation using the Bitcoin application should be simple to understand. Assume Alice wants to pay Bob 100 Bitcoin, but would like to conceal this value to others who have access to the Bitcoin public ledger. Alice could split the amount into two parts, say 30 Bitcoin and 70 Bitcoin. Alice could send 30 Bitcoin to Bob and convert the remaining 70 Bitcoin to a different cryptocurrency and use the corresponding alternative blockchain to pay Bob. Subject to minor fluctuations, Bob is satisfied, having received the total amount via the two individual systems. The same idea could then be extended using more than two blockchains, making it difficult for an eavesdropper to reconstruct the real original information. It can now be seen clearly that Bob has made use of the virtual private blockchain as this transaction has now been hidden from the rest of the members of the public blockchains, which are the Bitcoin blockchain, the EOS blockchain in this example, and also the Ethereum blockchain in this example. These are the public or the private blockchains in question. In order to investigate the feasibility of our proposed VPBC architecture, we simulated a proof of concept VPBC based on leveraging two multi-chain systems. The two private multi-chain blockchain systems, A and B, were set up on different instances of Ubuntu 12.04 LTS servers, with Node A and Node B representing cryptocurrency payment and digital value exchange systems, which also could be referred to as public blockchains. Multi-chain provides an intercommunication application program interface API giving access to the blockchain background application. This API was used by several separate processes implementing our virtual private blockchain where the desired transaction is generated and executed via a smart contract. We may refer to this as a virtual node C. The client process, which can run on any of the three Linux systems or a dedicated machine, generates the smart contract, performs the splitting, or more generally, the secret sharing of the asset and creates the terms of the individual smart contracts by initiating the payment on node A and node B. The transactions on node A and node B are verified by the blockchain, and upon successful execution of both transactions, our system will report the successful conclusion and execution of the virtual transaction. We will now discuss the application of the VPBC architecture in real-world scenarios. We propose that this architecture can be used for confidential cryptocurrency transactions. We also see them specifically being used for possible virtual smart contracts as regards digital real estates, and this would be tokenized physical asset transactions in the likeness of what we described before using the Bitcoin application. We also see the use of this architecture to prevent potential violation of data protection law, just like the GDPR law we have here in Europe. And we have also proposed this architecture to be used for higher education system architectures to be made more robust and secure. A paper has been written to this effect, and it has been accepted by the ICGS3 conference, and it will be published by January of 2021. We also propose that because of the creation of this new architecture, it has paved for an introduction for a new distributed decentralized ledger technology taxonomy. And this classification will be in the form of vertical and horizontal distributions of permissioned or permissionless blockchain systems. And we will be writing a paper to this effect to be submitted to conferences for publication consideration in due course. In conclusion, we would like to just go over the main point of this presentation today. And we started with introducing a novel blockchain architecture, which was by design a security overlay spanning across multiple blockchain implementations. And we also discussed the resulting system, which we termed virtual private blockchains. And this can be interpreted as a permission blockchain with vertical rather than horizontal distribution of the public ledger. We also discussed that initial security analysis shows the scheme is robust against possible known attacks. We also discussed the potential real-world applications of this scheme, and these have been identified and documented. Would like to thank you all for your attention and for your time. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.